Welcome, everybody, to the fourth episode of the official Animo Podcast. It's been about 2 months, I think, since I've done the last one, and I'm very pleased to announce and to welcome Clara,
Hi.
fellow Animember, to the podcast. Welcome. Thank you for coming on. Um, so, I'll take you through what we're going to do today. Like always, we're going to start with a little bit of an academic touch, talk about some things that Clara has done throughout her first year. And luckily for us, one of her papers, even though it was a group paper, which doesn't really matter, it still got published. So we can talk about that for starters. And then after that, we'll just go to the things we regularly talk about on the podcasts. Which we'll get to in a bit. So let's just get started straight away. You've published a group paper. What was it about?
Well, it was sort of, we were doing it for the course, wait, I forgot which course. Okay, anyways, we did it for Tom van Hart's course in the first semester. He started pretty much fresh with us in our first year. And we were talking about the gaming company Activision Blizzard and how they were sort of acting quite misogynistic within their workspace, and how you may sort of expect the community playing those games to also be then kind of misogynistic. But it turned out that the response from the community and what we sort of analyzed actually revealed that they quite liked women. Who would have guessed?
And how did you get to this topic? How did you... was it like within a certain framework of topics you could pick from, or was it purely...
Yeah, sort of. We were doing it for social groups in a digital world. So we were already looking at gamers and the sort of gaming community as a social group. And then we basically, when we had to do this group article, came together, saw and looked at our common interests, found that we all kind of liked games, or were at least familiar with the kind of gaming communities. Yeah, and that's how we got started.
Okay, and then it just happened to be at the same time where every bad news from Activision Blizzard came out.
Oh yeah, we got lucky.
So what was the writing process like? It was a group paper, so it's a bit different, obviously, than an individual paper where you control how everyone or how you write and what you write completely. Was it one of the first times for you to write a group paper, or have you done something before coming to university alike?
Oh yeah, it was kind of like my first ever article as well. So I was not really familiar with the like writing process on my own even. So we sort of came together a lot on Discord, which sort of fits the stereotype. And talked about what news we found, how we could structure them into a sort of coherent essay type piece. Yeah, and then everyone got to write their own parts. I quite like that in group articles you get to sort of peer review and look over things. In the end, I got to do a lot of linguistic, shenanigans, a little bit of... if you read the headlines of some of the paragraphs, they're all my work. They are certainly... quite humorous, quite, interesting.
And during the writing process, were there any things that you struggled with? Like writing either individually, your part, whatever you had to write, or just working with a group and group members that were tricky to work with?
Well, I sort of knew almost all of the members already just from like Top Week and getting introduced into online culture. But you also have to sort of find a coherence within what you want to write about. So, for example, I wrote about all the like press releases and the sort of legislative concerns that were happening within the company. But we, in the end, had to scrap that part because it didn't really fit into what we wanted to say in the end. Yeah, so sort of that. And then in the end, also having to go over everything and make it all sound like one coherent piece instead of a puzzle together like group project. Yeah.
Did you notice that there were like the writing styles of the other group members were like really far apart from each other? So was there a lot of work making it coherent? Or was it like a smooth process of, you know, you basically have to write only a couple of sentences to make it coherent?
I think I had to edit some parts quite heavily, but it was because we were of just like different backgrounds, starting off in online culture, and depending on where you're from, you might have like a different language flow. So sort of making that work was a bit of a challenge, but I just sat down with one of the members in the evenings, and then we would edit together. That was actually quite fun. I enjoyed that quite a lot.
And would you prefer do you prefer group papers or do you prefer individual papers?
Well, in group projects, I sort of take on the leader position some of the time. I like having that control and sort of, having a say on the narrative of a project. So in that regard, I would say I prefer doing it on my own, especially if it's an article. But I actually also really like the conversations and the discussions that come on within like group projects, because sometimes you really get like a new perspective on things, and yeah, that's nice.
Okay. Well, it being your first year, there will be more group projects, of course, and group papers. And by the end, you'll probably be completely done with it, which is, natural. But I would say papers in general, you're going to be done with quite quickly because, online culture as a study program focuses heavily on writing papers and writing articles, even though there's still, exams. But in my experience, the further along you get, the less exams you get, and the more you rely on papers and academic articles, which for me was a blessing because I really don't do well with exams, because either I'm too lazy to study, which is most likely the case, or I just, I have a lot of blackouts during exams.
Yeah, I feel also that exams are a bit outdated nowadays. I really quite prefer the sort of article style we especially get to do with Digit, where you actually apply things that you've learned to real life happenings. I feel like you can get really into a lot of your interests and sort of dig through them, and also make papers that are really like relevant for the time it's being published. So I think that's also the reason why my group paper got published so quickly. Like Eco didn't even give us any edits or suggestions, which
really
I thought it was quite unusual. I got a bit panicked when it said, this is gonna be published in like 2 weeks.
Damn. Yeah, because normally it was gonna be my follow-up question, like about the publishing process, because normally sometimes it takes like 6 months before a paper gets published.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and we study online culture and we write papers about what's happening currently in the world. So sometimes that would mean that a paper would be published 6 months after the event, so everybody's already forgotten about it. Of course, Activision Blizzard is still very much relevant because it's still, it uncovered a kind of, hidden fact about the gaming industry.
Yeah,
because
I feel like also a mentality that was already kind of known about but never really brought to light to the general public. So I feel like within the gaming community, a lot of people already knew that a lot of the companies producing those games and publishing them were sort of misogynistic, but that wasn't really known to a general public. There was the stereotype of them surely being, sort of misogynistic, but it was sort of agreed upon that the gamers then would probably also support it, but that's actually not the case.
Okay, but that's actually refreshing to hear that you've had a very positive experience with how quickly it got published. So there was little to no feedback from Eco before you could publish it? It was basically perfect.
I mean, I wouldn't say so. I read through it like in preparation for this podcast because I can never go anywhere without being prepared.
Wow.
Yeah, it is something. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to write it the same way as I did back then with my group. But I sure see why Eco thought it was relevant and needed to be published then and there, because it very much, the end goal and the end message of the paper still remains very relevant.
Yeah. And are you proud of it, if you look back on it?
I feel like towards the end there was a lot of stress involved. Like the closer the deadline got, the more we felt like I don't know, I didn't fight with anyone, but it was sort of a more tense environment. Like at first you would make a lot of jokes and just be a bit of a, have a bit of a chill approach. So in the end it got a bit, messy in that sense. But I'm not regretful in any way. I thought it was a really good idea and good way to start off just like writing articles for Digit in particular. Yeah.
And since then, did you change any of your approaches towards writing papers or articles?
I would say I do my research a bit more like thoroughly and don't really depend on other people that much to do it for me. Not that I'm like taking their work and saying it's mine, but I really want to get immersed into a topic first before writing about it. Because I also wrote a second article that was then also gonna be published with some edits. But I felt that my research was too in the moment and it wasn't really founded on any previous happenings. And in that regard, it kind of lacks relevance now that that particular situation is over. So, yeah.
What was that paper about?
I wrote about TikTok and how the like sort of indie musician community, like the pandemic style, I'm sitting in my room with a guitar and publishing songs, how that sort of persona emerged and how, those song bites and almost kind of more jingle-like music has now sort of spread within the platform. But the song I wrote about, like right when I submitted my paper, kind of lost relevance, and now, I don't know, it feels pointless to publish something about a topic that people have already forgotten about.
It does seem like you have very high standards of yourself and the papers you write.
Oh, yeah.
Because personally, I wouldn't care less. I couldn't care less about, the relevance of a paper. Because to me, it doesn't seem like it's my job to say whether a paper is relevant to be published or not. I just write it. And if Eco says, yeah, let's publish this, then I'm like, fine. Not that I actually put any effort in publishing any papers. But yeah, that's definitely interesting. It's definitely a new kind of conversation that I've never had on a podcast before. So, of course, it's gonna be your first year, but do you have the intention of publishing more papers in the future, or do you think, oh, this is it, this is fine?
Oh, no, definitely. I quite like the format of Digit and how, I mean, at first, the sort of interface looks a bit scary. There's like a bunch of buttons that I didn't know about. What is search engine optimization? Yeah, so again, with the group project, that was nice to figure out together. And I actually quite like that it's not just like a Word document or a PDF on my laptop that's just gonna rot there forever, but something that I can actually like spread, on a platform and show my friends. I don't expect to like blow up and suddenly I'm a journalist, but there certainly is, sort of praise in being able to publish something that is also like academically founded,
It's interesting that you mentioned the first time using Digit, because that is a conversation I've had in the past, because I've noticed that a lot of people, the first few times, even when I think back to my first year, the first few times for the first few articles, using Digit is very difficult. At least I thought it was like that. I want to ask you, like, how much information was given to you by either Eco or a different professor about like the how to use Digit and how to optimize everything you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I haven't had Eco as a teacher yet. He didn't.
I think he switched to master students only.
Yeah, but I did. I think I had a Zoom with him one time in like a other like Animo meeting or something. But we had a lot of like video tutorials just from Digit itself, and I think some documents shared. He was also, I think, in one of our tutorials for language, culture, and globalization, and sort of showed us around Digit. Yeah, so we had some helping hands just around campus showing us, but there was also a lot of figuring it out yourself.
Okay, but you did have a good idea of how to use it and what to do.
Yeah, I would say so. It's you just kind of trial and error your way through this.
Right. I think it's interesting now because I've had third year slash fourth years on the podcast now. Then Chris was a second year, and then you're a first year. And it does seem like every year the introduction to Digit gets better and better, which is interesting. And I think that's just, it's kind of logical to me because, every year online culture and Digit gets a year older. So
Yeah.
even, the professors in online culture are still learning along with us, which I think is nice because it does show that online culture hasn't been around for that long. But I mean, it's good that you had a positive experience because I remember in my first year, around the first deadlines, there was so much panic from everyone about how to use Digit, and everybody was like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know where to
Yeah.
find out what to do." So it seems to be headed in the right direction.
I
So
mean,
that's good.
we certainly had that, and once I had it figured out, I was like very happy to also have my classmates, and I sure do that a lot now too. But I feel like also, as you mentioned, over the years, the more people get to know Digit, the happier they also get to share that knowledge. So I also got to ask some like upper class people, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've discussed the academic part now.
Boo, academia.
Yeah, gross. So let's move on to a bit more, fun topic. I wouldn't say fun topics. That's a joke, by the way.
Oh.
No, just different topics, just more general topics, less focused on academia. So you are obviously, if people don't know, from Germany.
Oh yeah.
And what gave you the idea and what gave you the decision to move to the Netherlands to study here?
Ooh, I like talking about this.
Well, go ahead.
I am online culture. No, but in a way, online culture, before I even knew that it was a bachelor's degree, I guess, has quite followed me for quite some time. I was once a little girl on Instagram, and I found through just like a fan community, a group chat where I talked to some people, and there was this one very lovely Dutch girl who I became friends with. And I mean, from where I'm from in Germany, it's really not that far to the Netherlands. So one faithful day, I told my parents about this secret online friendship, and we packed our bags and just visited her. And yeah, she was living in the Netherlands, and she still is.
Where?
As of recording. Well, we were in Arnhem, which is
Okay.
like quite close to the border as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we visited her. I was no online creep, and neither was she. And from then on, we've been friends, best friends actually. So I really had like, a lot of knowledge about the Netherlands, and also some family friends moved there. And bit by bit, I sort of accidentally built a social circle here. And you must know, I graduated when the pandemic was
Right.
about to just break down and ruin everyone's life. So
We'll get into that
2020.
later.
Yeah, but that's the time where I then, instead of going ahead and studying in Germany, sort of took a year off to look around and see what worked for me. And because Germany seemed kind of boring in sort of like a media journalistic sphere, because a lot of those programs are more like focused on the sort of exam-based book, let's just eat a book and spit it all out again sort of mentality. I looked into the Netherlands, and already knowing someone here gave me the courage to move here, even though she's living in a completely different province.
And how did you get to Tilburg University? It was just the closest, or?
Well, first I was looking into psychology, but because I feel like every German person that studies here literally does just psychology. It makes sense. You have to, usually when you want to study psychology in Germany, it's a lot like grade based, so your high school grades must have been like really good in order to even be able to enter a German university for psychology. So I looked at that first, but realized, okay, I cannot really commit to it, because you really have to commit to psychology. You have to do the bachelor, you have to do the masters, you have to really know what you want to do with it, and I just wasn't at that point. So I had the tab open for Tilburg University, and online culture just made its way onto my desktop, and now here I am.
And you don't regret the decision?
Oh no, absolutely not. I quite like it here.
All right. Well, that's good. Um, so there wasn't really a very large move away. It wasn't like you came from the other side of Germany all the way over
No.
here.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's kind of weird because I mean, I would say I'm an expert. Like I moved here to study. I am not Dutch. I sort of am familiar with a lot of the Dutch like sentiments and culture because it is in many ways similar to Germany, but it's also still like very different. Sometimes people assume that, oh, you must be like so knowledgeable on everything Dutch because you're from like so close, but that's also not true. I'm sort of in between.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you already mentioned about graduating during COVID and during the pandemic. Luckily for you, at the start of your first year in university, you were able to experience a somewhat normal start, or I wouldn't say normal, but regular start uh, to your university career. Um, and it's interesting that you mentioned that year off that you took during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Would you like to share a bit more about what exactly you did during that year?
Yeah, sure. In Germany, we have the like sort of voluntary social year, so you get to go to a social course and then sort of work for them. So I, well, sort of half-handedly chose to go to a primary school, a kind of small one in my town. And I did like social work. I took care of the children during class. Like I would help them when they were working on their like math homework or something. And I would also in the after school care and play with them. Yeah, that was certainly a time during the pandemic because half of it was spent still being at the school, but with the children that then were not able to stay home and go hybrid or like go on Zoom. So you kind of had to try and figure your own life out, but also try to make it as bearable as possible for these like 8-year-old kids that really haven't had a big school experience yet.
No. And is that something you would like to get back to after studying?
I don't think so. Like working with children kind of showed me that I can certainly do it. Like I'm very responsible in that sense that I can take care of them. But it was also a really like overwhelming experience. There was a lot of organization that I didn't really have an impact on that would go wrong, and I didn't like not having that control. So in that sense, I don't think working with children is for me, but being able to like talk to people and there obviously were also like children from like different cultures, for example, and they would tell me stories from home, and I actually really quite enjoyed listening to that. So maybe in that respect, yeah.
And what is then your idea about after studying online culture? What like field would you like to enter? Like in a dream scenario. You could pick anything you want. What would you like to go do? It could be something completely different that has nothing to do with online culture, of course.
Well, I literally just like had my last lecture of the first year yesterday, so this is like a very far in the future thought. I feel like I might want to stay in the Netherlands or not. There's a lot of opportunities, I feel, for international people here, at least more than in Germany. Of course, in Germany, I'm not international, but I quite like the sort of optimistic and kind of like this like feeling of togetherness that's created here in this more like international space. So maybe I'd just stay here and work for maybe like a journalistic sense, like a course or some like maybe management, or go work at a cultural site, a museum or a concert hall, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I'd say that that's very doable with online culture. It's also something I think during your like as you just mentioned, it's just the end of your first year, so it's a long way away.
Yeah.
Are you interested in doing your master here as well? Do you want to go? Or do you want to go somewhere else, or don't you? Maybe you don't even want to do a master.
Well, I feel like I could consider doing a master, definitely. I really strive in academia, so I think it would be a good addition. maybe I'd go somewhere else. Because Tilburg is kind of... It is a city, but it sure is also kind of small for a city. So maybe I would want to broaden my horizon. But for now, I'm really beyond happy here.
Okay. And what track did you choose for next year?
What track? Well, we haven't been able to choose one.
Really?
Well, no, we're not done with the exams yet.
Oh, okay. But if you finally get the chance to choose your track, what track are you gonna pick?
Oh God, I don't want to say the wrong thing. You're biased. No, I think I'll probably go with the like sort of media focused one. Because we have had some like more artistic courses, and I do really like art. I've been painting for all my life. I've been crafting. It's like one of my favorite hobbies to just do something that, artistic. But like as an academic field or subject, it's almost a bit too free for me. Like in intermediality, for example, that course. Julia would always say like everything is intermedial, is like intermedial. Well, but then how do I even define it if there's nothing I can narrow it down to? But yeah, so the freedom that art presents in this like academic field, really, it's just too much for me.
But I mean, maybe you've thought about it, maybe not. But you,
Sure.
in your minor space, you can still always
yeah.
pick some art courses
yeah.
if you want.
I might honestly do that. I still have to sort of figure out which courses fit me in that regard. But I will honestly just like harass some other students that have already done those courses, and
Right.
it'll be fine.
I think there's a couple of like art in the public sphere courses that I really enjoyed, and there's a couple that even made me feel like I don't really know what to do here.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was live writing. It was the vaguest course I've ever had.
Oh no, don't put
And
me in there.
it was basically, it was all about everything related to walking,
Oh.
which was super weird.
Well, that almost sounds more like philosophical.
It was very philosophical, yes. But it was like, I just feel like it didn't really go into depth about a whole lot. And I think the professor, who has retired since, didn't even know himself pretty much what he was gonna teach. But still, it was, it was enjoyable, and it was just an interesting story to tell. What kind of course it was. So that's fun. But there are definitely like, it's sad. I talked with Chris about this, I think in the last podcast as well, about Julie and Hannah taking over intermediality, and I think he also took over Truth of Fiction, or maybe Odile Heinders is doing that now. What's not sad that they are teaching that, but it's sad that Inge van der Ven isn't teaching that anymore, because Inge van der Ven is my favorite teacher, or was my favorite teacher. I don't know if she'll be back actually. I think she might be. I think she was doing like a research year or a few years or whatever. But intermediality and Truth of Fiction taught by Inge van der Ven, that's just something else, I think. And I liked Julie and Hannah. I had them for reading and writing in online culture. I think you'll have that next year.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a mandatory course for
I believe so. Yeah.
digital culture. And I like them a lot. It's just that, to me, nothing can ever compare to intermediality or Truth of Fiction by Inge van der Ven. That was just...
Yeah.
We had one guest lecture. I think it was in... I can't remember if it was intermediality or Truth of Fiction, but it was about zines. I don't know if you know what a zine is.
You told me about this.
Oh, I told you about this already. Yes,
and then
we could just, we can just
share it. Hello, audience.
Yeah.
You're involved.
We can just like there was a guest lecture and some exterior professor, or I think it was a friend of Inge, came by and taught us about, what is a zine and what can you achieve with it. And then she just gave us a whole bunch of like supplies, arts and crafts supplies, and we could just make our own zines. And then you had to submit them and give a little bit of, I think it was like 1,000 words or 1,500 words about your zine for a grade as part of your portfolio. And it was just so much fun, because that was really the first experience I had in online culture where what I thought and my creativity could really, be set free.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I try to do it with a lot of my assignments too. but the time just doesn't allow for me to always do little drawings and whatnot.
And are you the kind of person on like tests, if you have time after like completing the entire test, but the time hasn't run out yet, to make little drawings on your exam sheets?
I do it in my notes sometimes, but not
Okay.
on my exam. Those are
Okay.
serious matters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I would say that if you, like you said, you like art, but you want to focus on the digital culture side of it,
Yeah.
the digital media side of it, that doesn't mean that you can't do artsy courses as
Oh,
well.
no.
You can do both.
I just enjoy writing more. I like showing off my English eloquence and whatnot.
Wow.
Ooh,
Ooh, fancy,
words.
fancy words.
Yes.
All right, and are you planning on going on exchange, or doing an internship, or do you want to stay here and maybe do a master abroad, or do you want to do your minor on a different university? Have you thought about those things at all?
Sort of, yeah. I don't know if I really want to do exchange. I feel like I'm already on exchange. I feel like a statement that a lot of international students also just can feel and relate to. It's just, I just moved here, you know? I don't need to think about moving somewhere else again. There's a whole lot of logistics involved. What happens to my room and whatever. But I'm definitely interested in doing the internship. I know I'll get like really anxious about it, but I have a friend who once told me, fear keeps me going. And that sentiment I really need to adopt more and really want to tackle more. And I actually asked one of the online culture people, like in the third or something year, about it. And she works at the 013, like the concert hall that's sort of close to the center. We actually went to concerts there together by accident. Somehow went to the same artists. But no, they actually might accept like international students. So yeah, we might, or I might be able to work there at some point. I would definitely be interested in doing that. Because I don't know how far beyond Tilburg I can think in regards of internships, because as an international, I don't get student travel that easily. So
I think there are opportunities with like internships sometimes. If you bring it up, to basically pay for your travel there. It's definitely something in like actual employment. It's called reiskostenvergoeding in Dutch, which basically means you get the money back that you spend on traveling to and from work. So you can always have a conversation with somebody at the internship about it. Because I do have to say, in Tilburg, I think there's a couple of possibilities, and especially given our field and online culture, you can do a lot of internships online nowadays. So you can work a lot from home, I think. But in my opinion, and in my experience, the most fun is actually going somewhere, going to the office, and having meetings, having real life meetings. That just makes it feel way different than working from home. But if you, like you said, Tilburg is a small city. A lot of Dutch people always call Tilburg a big village instead of a small city.
Oh, I can see why.
Because it feels very small.
Yeah.
It feels very intimate, and the city center isn't that big.
Oh yeah, I quite like it. You can basically cycle anywhere within 20 minutes at most.
Yeah. But if you go outside of Tilburg and you go to Rotterdam or Utrecht or Den Haag, The Hague, or Amsterdam, there's way more possibilities for internships for internationals, because those cities are also just, there's more internationals in general there. So I think you'll definitely find an internship somewhere. It's just a matter of how you get there and if you actually like doing it. But you have some time to think about it, because in your entire second year you basically can just focus on what you're doing in that moment. And I think at the end of the second year, the last couple of months of the second year, that's the moment you should start thinking about what am I going to do next year. Because there are some students that for their minor go to different universities and follow some courses there. That's very possible. if you want to broaden your horizons in that way. I personally used my minor space to catch up on courses from the communication and digital media tracks, because I still, me picking art in the public sphere doesn't mean I don't have an interest in the other two tracks, of course. The only thing I do know is that I don't have an interest in the third track or the fourth track, which was teacher Dutch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not even applicable.
No, exactly.
So.
Okay. So, well, I think you'd have a bright future then, at least the next few years. And I think even if you decide to go on exchange, I think there's a lot of people that tell you to do it, because I do think it's a lot of fun to go on exchange, and especially, getting to know a whole new culture, but also a whole new academic culture. Because even though you're still, most likely gonna study in English, every university is different. But yeah, you have plenty of time to think about that. All right, so let's talk about Animo, because this is, of course, an Animo podcast. This is your first year in Animo, because it's also your first year studying in Tilburg.
Oh, yeah.
So what did you think so far of the Animo association and the Animo year?
Well, I think I got to kind of see it go out of hybrid into more like real life events, and I thought that was quite fun. I was at first actually quite hesitant to even join Animo, because I thought I wouldn't have the time, or it's not worth it when it's all online. But at some point I just did it, and since then it's been going quite well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of more chill events, like just going to the Foss, like the bar that we usually go to. But then also having company visits and going elsewhere and just sort of discovering what culture just has to offer in general. I really quite enjoy that. I also like how I get to connect with other people that I usually really don't see around campus. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think the only thing you still miss is a study trip.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's been so long since we've gone on a study trip.
Yeah, Rome got cancelled. That was actually quite a bummer.
I mean, last year it was my board year, and we did an online study trip, which was still fun. And I think it still had a little bit of that sentiment of a study trip, just because, we, for 5 or 4 days, consecutively, we met up online and, did a bunch of different activities. And I think the committee then did a really solid job at trying to organize anything, basically. And then, of course, this year, unfortunately, Rome had to get cancelled. But you will definitely, if you stick around Animo, at least, you will definitely experience a study trip at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a study trip is probably the ultimate moment in a study association year, because on a study trip you make the best bonds there are, pretty much.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
Because you do so many things together, and you also if you have a feeling that you're always stuck with the same people, with the same group, well, not stuck necessarily, that makes it sound negative, but if you always hang around the same people at events or wherever, the study trip is definitely also a very good opportunity to talk to new people, and new cliques get formed in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that if you stick around Animo, that you'll experience a study trip. So that's definitely something to look out for.
Nice.
What would your ideal study trip location be?
Oh god, location wise, god, I haven't been around much, so there's a lot to explore mentally also right now. Well, how far abroad can we think?
Well, I think unfortunately Animo isn't big enough to go like outside of the European Union, because there are like, especially in the economics department of Tilburg University, there are just wealthier associations with more members and with a higher membership fee, so they just have more money, so they can go I know in my year, no, the year before my year, there was a study association that went to Singapore. There's study associations that go to Thailand and wherever. I don't think Animo will go there anytime soon, so I think
Yeah, I would have
anywhere
said,
within Europe, basically.
I would have said New Zealand, but that's quite far, huh?
Yeah.
Oh God, there's so many countries. I would certainly quite like something with like a coast or some kind of sea or lake. I'm a big fan of natural waters.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe maybe like France or something. The coastal France region can go dive somewhere. Ooh, I would go diving. That sounds great. Look at the fish.
And how is that relevant to online culture?
You get to learn about fish. That's cool. And I mean, there's France.
Right.
They have culture.
True. I guess that's true. All right.
You get to learn about wildlife, okay? That's...
Yeah. Oh? I guess, yeah. All right. So, about Animo, do you have intentions of sticking around?
No, I'm leaving now.
Okay.
No, I just ordered a hoodie. Why would I order that and then not?
That's true.
I have some ideas for Animo. I have some... Yeah, I will definitely want to attend more, and because sometimes I get stuck in my sort of like academic obsessions of just wanting to research everything at once, and then
I think Animo would then be, or any association would be a good way to kind of still be around people in an academic field, but in a more casual setting.
Oh yeah,
and enjoying student life, because student life isn't all about studying.
Oh yeah, and I definitely need to remind myself of that. And Animo is one of the best ways to do so. I mean, they even go to like a Cantus every once in a while.
Yep. Have you been to a Cantus?
I'm not a big fan of beer. Revelation of a German.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that is quite odd, but I really want to get into that.
You know what the veterans do?
Oh, tell me.
The veterans bring one of those small, highly concentrated syrups, and they just, with like strawberry flavor or raspberry flavor, they bring that, and then in their beer they just give it a little squeeze, and you turn it into a fruity beer.
That's cute, I guess. Might want to try that, maybe?
Yeah, so that's what the veterans do among us.
Well, I'm a freshman. I'm a newbie.
That's
true.
How
could I?
That's true. I think at first I was like, I'm not really gonna like Cantuses. But then I went to one, and then I realized that it's really fun.
Yeah, I've seen some of my old roommates go there like every once in a while. They're like in economics, so there's like a bunch of them, especially in the beginning of the year. And they always came home in a very interesting state. So I would definitely like to see that with my own eyes, but I might just end up hiding in a corner, naturally.
I mean, yeah. But as long as you stick to Animo people,
that's fun.
You'll definitely have fun.
Totally,
for sure.
Totally.
I mean, I've never had any other thing. I've never not have fun in a Cantus. I've only had interesting events happen, which I won't get into because it's been covered way too many times already in the past.
I thought we were getting some secrets
No,
here.
No, it's fine. No, just the casual drunken adventures that anybody has after a Cantus.
Daily occurrence.
Yeah. So, all right. And what about like the mental aspect of Animo? Because I know in the past, at least in my board year, and I'm sure that, and I think that the current board is doing a solid job of it as well. We always wanted to make sure that Animo creates this space where people can come together and find help whenever they need it, either mentally or academically. Have you had a sense of how it is to be able to always have somebody to reach out to?
Oh, I'd say so. Like, Animo is, when I first came there were like very little people that I actually knew from my year, and I think it's like predominantly like more like people in the later years that join most of the Animo events, and it's been one of the most like welcoming communities that I've just ever interacted with, and I don't need to be afraid of being judged or anything. I can even just like bullshit in the group chat and it's gonna be fine. There's gonna be someone just replying and having the same amount of fun that I'm having.
Mostly
so.
Chris.
Oh yeah, Chris, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good because I think that's that's definitely one of the things that Animo strives to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice to hear that people have such good experiences with Animo.
Yeah, although I didn't expect to be called out that one time in the newspaper. I didn't know that they were doing that.
And what was it again?
Oh, we're not getting into that. But I was certainly surprised when I once read my name in the newspaper and...
if you stick around longer, it'll happen more and more.
Oh yeah, no, now I'm prepared. Now I know what to expect. But
by the way, if you have any dumb quotes, you can always, text us. And then we can use them in the...
I'll just be exposing myself.
No, because we won't be... we won't mention any names.
Yeah, but I will know, and that's already...
You will know, yes.
High standards.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any committees you'd like to join next year?
I mean, I do quite like the Animo news, and I like reading them, so I might consider it, but...
Is there anything you'd change about Animo news?
I don't think so.
I mean.
No, I don't. No, I don't have any critiques. I'm a very optimistic person. I don't see anything wrong with what's happening. Maybe warn people first before you expose them.
That could be a good idea. But the thing is, especially the Animo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a an idea of who it might be?
An idea? Well, it must be someone that sort of moves within my circles. Then again, I don't want to even start questioning it because then I'll just get like paranoid and suspicious of everyone. And no, I don't need to do that to myself. I'll just suffer in silence.
But I think the fun thing about the Animo especially is, like you almost get shocked that you're mentioned.
Yeah, I almost cried. That was actually not a fun experience. Like, genuinely,
really?
I didn't like that.
Oof. Okay, well, you gotta get in touch with the Animo at the end of the year then.
Yes.
Out for vengeance.
Oh, totally. I am planning as we speak.
Good. Maybe next year, just outlaw.
Oh yeah. No, I will.
Just join the Animo News Committee and say like, guys, no more Animo.
Maybe that is what I would change. Or just make it more democratic.
More democratic?
More open. The people must know. Oh, no secret agents here.
All right.
No infiltration.
All right. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. I think the listeners, the Animo listeners, definitely got to know you better.
Yeah, I'm just boring and a nerd. Who would have known?
Yeah, pretty much. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not.
Is there anything you would like to say to whoever's listening right now?
Hi.
Or is there anything you'd like to still talk about? Because, if you want, we can keep it going for a little bit.
Oh, certainly. I don't know. I quite like... Okay, that's the thing I've noticed with Animo, actually. Sometimes when you're like in a space that's predominantly Dutch, they will just start speaking Dutch. And for me, I mean, I've heard that some internationals find it like discriminatory and it can get a bit annoying. Like, maybe not at the extreme, but it can be a bit like weird then to enter space when people don't even speak the same language. But as someone who very much wants to learn a lot of Dutch, I think it's quite fun. It's fun, especially the like success of then just knowing what they talked about.
Right.
Oh, you were talking about ice cream? Yeah, we were. Wow, I know Dutch now.
Right. I mean, that's definitely... But that's every year that's a challenge because if Dutch people sense that you're among other Dutch people, it's just so much easier to switch over to Dutch.
And I don't even think that's a bad thing. It's just, I feel like there's two sides to it. Sometimes Dutch people get like really, I don't know, when I try to put myself into that space, sometimes I get like kind of critiqued about the way that I try to speak Dutch, and then other times I get like a lot of praise. So it's like it's like two sides of the coin and I never know what to expect. So definitely a learning curve, but
I don't think
sure is fun.
I don't think within Animo there's anybody gonna be like, oh my god, your Dutch sucks.
Yeah, that's because I don't speak it. Because I get scared
Well,
and
try
shy.
it. Try it.
No.
Introduce yourself in Dutch.
Hallo, ik ben Clara en ik weet niet wat ik moet doen, maar oké, that's it. Houdoe.
Well, you're almost a natural.
Yeah, almost. Too many Dutch songs in my brain at all times.
Dutch songs. What do you think of Dutch music?
Oh, I've been to 2 Dutch concerts of the same singer.
Who?
With Vrouwtje.
Okay.
Yeah, she does, I think, like pretty new age sort of like pop music that, I don't know, I feel like they could almost work in English, but she does a lot like wordplay and uses a lot of like Dutch sayings that you couldn't translate ever into English. I think she once said it in an interview too. So in that sense, I actually quite like that through listening to her music and through sort of deciphering what she's saying, I also get to learn a bit about like those kind of Dutch sayings and the origins of them. But then there's also like kind of weird Dutch music, like the kind of like old people music or the rap. I mean, the rap can be a bit fun at parties, but yeah, it's certainly an interesting mix. But I mean, in general, I like it every once in a while.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we've come a long way. So I think I want to thank you first and foremost for coming on. This is going to be the last podcast of the year. I don't know if the podcast will be back next year. I don't know if I'll be back next year, most likely, but that's besides the point. But if the podcast comes back, then we'll see you in the future. If not, then this was it. So you're either the honorary final podcast guest or not.
Oh, that's no pressure at all. Thanks. God.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you at a next Animo event. I don't know if and when, but bye.
Goodbye.